It started like any other chilly February morning in Heartwood. The sky was still gray, the streets blanketed in a thin layer of frost. Valentine's Day had arrived, and with it came roses, glittery cards, and an awkward tension that seemed to infect every high school hallway. But for 5 seniors at Ridgeway High, love wasn't the plan for the day. Skipping school was. Amara, the quiet artist. Jace, the thrill-seeker. Natalie, queen bee with a razor tongue. Theo, the brain with a dark sense of humor. And finally Cal, the new kid, tall and unreadable. A tight-knit group held together by mischief, secrets, and a mutual disdain for all things ordinary. The plan was simple. Ditch school, hike out to the old Fairview Lodge deep in the woods, drink cheap wine, and avoid heart-shaped nonsense. It was supposed to be harmless fun, a memory they'd laugh about at graduation. But what none of them knew was that Fairview wasn't empty anymore. Something was waiting. It always waits. They met behind the football field at 8 a.m., backpacks slung, eyes gleaming with excitement. "No turning back now," Theo said, holding out his hand. They each placed their fingers on top, forming a childish star. "Valentine's Day pact," Jace smirked. 5 in, 5 out. The walk through the woods was longer than expected. By the time they reached the clearing where the lodge stood, their laughter had thinned into cautious whispers. The lodge, once a holiday retreat for well-off families, had been boarded up for years. Vandalized, abandoned, forgotten. Its windows were shattered, and the wood siding was grayed with age and moss. But despite its decay, there was something wrong about it. Something that didn't match the stories. "I thought this place was burned down," Amara said quietly, brushing back her dark curls as she stared at the building. Cal's eyes narrowed. "They said it was condemned. After what happened to the Myers family." "What did happen?" Natalie asked, her voice sharp with curiosity. Jace grinned. "Murder-suicide. That's the legend, anyway." "No," Cal replied, more serious than the others expected. "They vanished. No bodies. Just blood. A whole lot of blood." The group fell silent. "Whatever," Natalie scoffed. "We're not here for ghost stories." They climbed through a broken window at the back of the building, entering a wide-open living space thick with dust and decay. The cold inside was worse than outside, an unnatural chill that made their breath visible. Furniture was overturned, and remnants of old family photos clung to the walls, faded and water-damaged. A heart-shaped wreath, bizarrely intact, still hung on the fireplace mantel. They explored the lower floor first, taking turns spooking each other. Natalie lit a few candles, placing them on the ground in a circle, declaring it their Valentine's circle of hate. They opened bottles, laughed, passed around an old Bluetooth speaker playing angsty throwback music. By noon, the sun outside had already dimmed behind thick clouds. It was Theo who found the trapdoor, near the kitchen, half hidden under a dusty rug. He pulled it open with a loud creak, revealing narrow wooden stairs descending into darkness. "Nope," Amara said, backing away immediately. But Jace was already at the edge, phone flashlight in hand. "Come on. We came for a story, didn't we?" One by one they followed, some more reluctantly than others. The air was colder down there, sharp and metallic like old pennies and wet stone. The basement was large, lined with shelves and crates, a relic of the lodge's past. But something about it felt wrong. Then they saw the door. A single steel door built into the stone wall. It didn't belong. It was new. Too clean, too modern. Completely out of place in a house abandoned for nearly 2 decades. "Is that a vault?" Theo asked. There were no markings. No handle. Just a thin slot in the center. "Maybe it's sealed," Cal said, running a hand over its surface. As if responding, a quiet mechanical click echoed. The door began to open inward with a slow, grinding moan. Beyond the door was a room lit only by the faint orange glow of old filament bulbs embedded in the ceiling. Inside stood a round table, 5 chairs, and in the center, a small music box carved in the shape of a heart. The group froze. "Is this some kind of setup?" Natalie asked, spinning in place. This isn't funny. No one laughed. Jace stepped forward and picked up the music box. The dirt road twisted like a serpent as it pulled the van deeper into the woods. Jace's old Dodge rattled over each bump, the only sound for miles. No music, no laughter. Just the tires chewing gravel and the occasional creak of the frame. What began as a spontaneous escape was already starting to feel off. Why are we even going this way? Amara asked, her voice low, brushing hair behind her ear as she stared out at the tree line. Shortcut, Jace said, tapping the wheel. There's a cabin up here. Empty for years. My cousin used to party there. Thought it'd be better than hanging in someone's basement. No cell service, Theo muttered, checking his phone. Which is how every horror movie begins. Natalie scoffed. Please. It's Valentine's Day, not Halloween. But even she seemed on edge. The forest had changed. The light was thinner here, the trees closer. Something about the way they leaned inward, as if the forest was listening. The van came to a slow crawl and stopped in a small clearing. The cabin sat at the far edge, shrouded in pine and shadow. It wasn't what they expected. Not some party shack, but an old house sagging and splintered with time, windows like empty eyes. Who got out first? He didn't say much. Just stood there staring at the house. This is it? Natalie asked, wrinkling her nose. Looks abandoned, Jace said. Perfect. Reluctantly, they followed him inside. The door groaned open, and the air hit them like a memory. Damp, cold, and heavy. The inside was mostly bare. Dust-coated floors, a broken-down couch, fireplace with soot clinging to the stone. But something else lingered. Presence. They felt it in the walls, in the way the light died the second the door closed. Still, the bravado returned as the hours went on. Jace rolled a joint. Theo pulled out a speaker and queued up music from a downloaded playlist. Natalie found an old box of dusty wine bottles in the cellar and declared it a vintage Valentine's treat. But he barely spoke. Amara watched him from the corner. He stood near the fireplace, one hand on the stone, head tilted slightly like he was listening to something no one else could hear. You okay? She asked. His eyes flicked to hers. It's louder here. Louder. He didn't explain. By sundown something had shifted. Natalie was the first to notice it. She'd gone to the bathroom upstairs, and when she came back she was pale. There's writing on the mirror, she said. What kind of writing? Theo asked. Words. Scratched in. Fresh. They all went to see. Sure enough, on the fogged-up mirror. Do not stay. Creepy, Jace said, laughing nervously. It's probably just someone messing with us. It wasn't there before, Natalie snapped. Maybe Cal wrote it, Theo joked. He seems like the cryptic type. But Cal didn't react. Just walked back downstairs in silence. They stayed. Course they did. That night the cold came fast. Too fast. The fireplace barely helped. They huddled under blankets scavenged from a closet upstairs. At some point they fell asleep, except for Amara. She woke to a noise. Not footsteps. Not a creak of wood. Voice. Faint. From the hallway. She rose slowly, leaving the others asleep in the living room. The hallway was narrow, bathed in shadows from the moonlight that bled through the broken windows. The voice was whispering. A soft repetition of words she couldn't understand. It was coming from behind the door at the end of the hall. The basement. She should have turned back. Should have gone to wake Amara's fingers trembled as they closed around the rusted doorknob. The whispering had stopped. Now there was only silence, and somehow that was worse. She hesitated, pressing her ear against the door. Nothing. Just the sound of her own heartbeat, wild and ragged. The doorknob turned with a dry click. She opened the door to pitch blackness. A single narrow staircase disappeared below, swallowed by shadow. The air pouring out was cold, ancient, and thick with the smell of damp wood and rusted metal. Amara took a cautious step down, then another. The wooden steps groaned beneath her weight. The further she went, The quieter everything seemed to get, until even the wind outside was gone, replaced by something else. Breathing. Not hers. She froze. There was a faint light at the bottom. Flickering. Like candlelight. When she reached the last step, she found herself in a low, cramped cellar lined with shelves holding jars of unrecognizable things floating in cloudy liquid. On the far side of the room, a table was set with 3 candles, and something carved into the surface. She stepped closer and saw it. A symbol burned into the wood, encircling a single word. Offer. Suddenly the air shifted. Something moved in the corner of the room. A shadow, detaching itself from the wall. Amara gasped and stumbled back, but the candlelight blew out all at once. Darkness swallowed her. She scrambled for the stairs, her breath coming in sharp, terrified bursts. Something brushed her ankle. She bolted up the steps, slammed the door shut behind her, and collapsed against it. The next morning she told the others. Or tried to. Jace waved it off. You probably just dreamed it. I didn't, she snapped. There was something down there. Something real. Natalie looked pale but tried to keep her tone even. Let's just leave. Seriously. This place is weird. We had our fun, let's go. But the van wouldn't start. Jace popped the hood, swore, checked wires, banged the side, but nothing worked. No signal on any of their phones. The forest seemed thicker now, the light dimmer, even though the sun was out. Kel finally spoke. We should leave on foot. Everyone turned to him. What? Theo frowned. It's like 10 miles to the nearest gas station. Better than staying here, Natalie muttered. I'm with him, Amara added. Something's wrong with this place. Still Jace refused. I'll fix the van. You all go if you want. Theo stayed with him. Natalie, Amara, and Cal decided to hike out. They packed water bottles and granola bars, wrapped themselves in jackets, and set off into the woods. But an hour in, they realized something terrifying. They were walking in circles. Trees never changed. A gnarled stump. A patch of moss shaped like a crescent moon. A fallen birch with a dark slash through the middle. No matter which direction they walked, they always came back to it. We're lost, Natalie said, her voice tight. We're stuck. Amara sat on a rock, head in her hands. It's the house. It won't let us go. Cal was quiet, his gaze fixed on the treetops. You knew, didn't you? She asked him. You said it was louder here. He didn't deny it. I've seen this place before, he finally said. In dreams. It calls people. Natalie turned on him. You brought us here on purpose. I didn't know it was real. Bullshit. He didn't argue. That night they returned to the cabin. Reluctantly. Defeated. Jace and Theo were missing. At first, Amara thought maybe they had gone out searching for help. But then they found Theo's phone, smashed in the fireplace. Burnt, blackened. Still warm. The power in the cabin flick. The lights buzzed weakly overhead, their flickering glow casting jittery shadows across the floor. The sudden presence of electricity felt wrong, like something had been activated. As if the house had decided to wake up. Natalie stood frozen in the doorway, staring at the glowing bulbs. How the hell? No one touched the breaker, Amara whispered. Did they? Kel didn't answer. He was looking at the stairs. Not the basement ones, but the creaking narrow steps that led to the second floor. And then, without a word, he began climbing them. Where are you going? Natalie called after him. There's something up there. They hesitated, but Amara followed. After a moment, Natalie cursed and joined them. The second floor was colder than before. Windows that had been boarded now stood wide open, letting in a sharp wind that carried the scent of rot. The hallway stretched longer than they remembered. Impossibly long, like the house had shifted, grown. At the very end, a door stood ajar. They approached slowly. Inside was a bedroom, untouched by time. Dustless. Clean. The bed was made, the curtains fluttering slightly. On the wall above the headboard was a photograph, sepia-toned and cracked, showing 5 teenagers standing in front of the same house. It was dated Valentine's Day 1985. They all had red ribbons tied around their wrists. "That's not us, is it?" Natalie asked, her voice small. "They look just like us," Amara whispered. "History repeating itself," Cal muttered. "That's how this place feeds." Beneath the photograph was a diary. Amara picked it up. The leather cover was stiff, but it opened easily. The first few entries were normal. Stories of teenage boredom, skipping school, drinking, making out. But then the tone changed. The last entry was written in a jagged scrawl. "Only one can leave. The others must stay. The offer must be made." They stared at each other. "No," Natalie said, backing away. "No, that's just a story. A sick joke." "There were 5 of them," Amara said. One came back. The floor groaned beneath them. Then the lights died again. Darkness returned, heavy and absolute. A scream echoed from downstairs. They rushed down to find the living room empty, and the front door wide open. Natalie sprinted outside, calling Jace's name into the trees. No answer. Only the moaning of wind through dead branches. Then they saw the message carved into the front. They stood frozen at the threshold, eyes fixed on the carved message beneath their feet. "One is chosen. The rest remain." Amara felt her breath catch in her throat. Natalie stumbled back into the cabin, shaking her head violently. "This isn't happening. It's a prank. It has to be a prank." Cal didn't move. His expression had gone blank, almost peaceful. And that terrified Amara more than anything. "What does it mean?" she asked, barely able to get the words out. "It means it wants one of us to leave," Cal said quietly. "And the rest, it keeps." Natalie turned on him, voice shrill with panic. "And you knew. You knew this would happen." "I dreamed it." "For weeks," Cal said. "I thought it was just that, dreams. But when Jace said, 'Let's skip school,' and I saw the house, I knew. I just didn't believe it could really be real. So you let us walk into it." Amara spat. "You let us die. I thought maybe, if we followed the pattern, we could break it." Natalie laughed, a hollow sound. "Oh yeah. How's that going?" A door slammed somewhere deep in the house. They all flinched. Then the whispers started again. Not from the basement. Not from upstairs. From everywhere. Soft, overlapping voices repeating the same phrase again and again. "Choose. Choose. Choose. Choose." The walls began to shake. Amara grabbed Natalie's hand. "We have to get out. We run. Now." But Cal didn't move. He walked to the center of the living room, turned to face them both and said, "I saw how it ends." "What?" "There is no way out," he said. "Unless someone chooses." "You mean sacrifice?" He nodded. "One goes. The others stay." "No," Amara said, shaking her head. "We all go. We all go." But Cal was already walking toward the front door. "I'm the reason we're here. Let me fix it." The whispers grew louder, frantic now. "Choose. Choose. Choose." He paused at the door. "Whatever happens, don't look back." The door opened with a soft groan. Cal stepped through. And the house went silent. No whispers. No creaking. No lights. Just stillness. Amara and Natalie looked at each other, unsure whether to hope or grieve. Then they heard footsteps on the porch. Cal hadn't returned. It was someone else. The door opened slowly. A figure stepped inside, but it wasn't Jace, Theo, or Cal. It was a boy in a Letterman jacket, eyes hollow, skin stretched tight across his bones. One of the teenagers from the 1985 photo. He smiled at them, slow and crooked. And behind him, figures began to fill the yard. Dozens of them. Teens in outdated clothes. All wearing red ribbons. Natalie screamed. Amara ran for the back door, yanking it open. And this time there was no forest. There was only black. Not darkness, blackness. Void. Pulsing living thing. She slammed the door. Natalie had collapsed in the corner, whispering, "I don't want to stay. I don't want to stay." Then the lights came back on. And the house began to change. The walls stretched higher. The ceiling cracked. Floorboards warped and twisted beneath their feet. It was feeding now, growing stronger. The ritual had been delayed, not broken. The front door creaked again. And Kel stepped back inside. But something was wrong. His eyes were black, hollow like the others. His voice when it came was not his. "You made no choice." Amara screamed. The house screamed with her. 3 weeks later, only one girl was found wandering the edge of the woods, barefoot and covered in dirt. Clothes torn, hair tangled, eyes wide with shock. She couldn't explain where she'd been. Couldn't remember how she got out. Just one sentence, repeated again and again in a dull whisper. They skipped school on Valentine's Day. And only one came back.